Romans 4:19 through 21 says, "Without weakening in his faith, he faced the fact that his body was as good as dead, since he was about 100 years old, and Sarah's womb was not also dead. Yet he did not waver in through unbelief regarding the promise of God, but was strengthened in his faith and gave glory to God, and being fully persuaded that God had the power to do what he had promised." Well, if you're joining us in reading through this 90-day reading plan, today's reading is Romans chapter 4, and I encourage you to read that passage. Well, in chapter 4, Paul uses Abraham's experience to show how faith and justification fit together. He shows that God's promise came to Abraham prior to his circumcision. That means that faith comes before an act which demonstrates that faith. Cyril of Jerusalem in 313 through 386 AD wrote a series of letters to those who were about to join the church, and these people were known as catechumens. They were learners of Christianity prior to their public confession of faith. And in the letter on baptism, he made it clear that baptism is an integral part of your Christian walk, but faith precedes that baptism. Cyril makes it clear that while faith and baptism are two steps to your journey in a relationship with Christ, faith comes first in that list. It's sometimes difficult for us as Protestant believers to put those two steps together. We assume faith and then at a later time baptism. The problem is that in the early church, and particularly with those who were not familiar with Judaism or John's baptism, there was a time of learning prior to their confession of faith and baptism. As we Gentiles are unfamiliar with that concept of baptism, we see faith and baptism as separate events, and yet they are really two aspects of the same event. Now, please don't misunderstand me. Faith comes first, and if you were to die immediately after becoming related to Christ through faith, you would spend eternity with God based on that faith. However, if you did not die immediately, then the action of baptism is an important step in your journey with Christ. Well, Abraham took action in his life after the promise was given. Paul clearly states it was an act of faith that allowed him to ultimately experience sexual relations with Sarah so that Isaac was born. Faith and action cannot be separated.